Hey guys, 16M here, and I'm back at it again with another episode of Hearthschool. Yeah, that's what I decided to call it, and which is just another educational series looking at more complex concepts in Hearthstone. Now, today's topic is life totals and how you can use your life total as a resource. So everyone should know by now that the life total is the little number next to your hero portrait that tells you how close you are to dying in a game of Hearthstone. Having a higher or lower life total doesn't directly translate into you winning or losing the game. A lot of people initially think that when it comes to Hearthstone or when it comes to any trading card games that rely on life as the win metric. But if you have lower life total, something similar to like 10 life and your opponent's on 30 life, but you have a board that's completely full, it's safe to say that you're likely, ahead in the game or winning on the board at least. So now, if you're looking to improve your gameplay in Hearthstone or become a better arena player or increase just your overall win percentage, you should start looking at your life total as a resource. So, how is your life total a resource? First question that comes to people's minds, when being introduced to such a topic is how? Your life total has various applications when it comes to how you can play out your cards, or use your minions, or trade them in for a certain tempo or value. The easiest example that I could give that portrays how life is a resource is obviously the Warlock class's hero power, right? Life tap, strongest hero power in the game, basically, that's a general consensus. Paying 2 life to draw a card. Now this can skyrocket you way ahead in card advantage, and yeah, that's just the easiest way to explain how to use your life as a resource. But all classes can use your life as a resource. Now, why is using your life as a resource important? Okay, this is a quote from Magic the Gathering. I've been playing Magic for forever, and it does translate into Hearthstone. So it is impossible to win a game on 0 life, but it's possible to win a game on 1 life. Right? A lot of newer players tend to value their life total really highly in Hearthstone or in Magic. They make unprofitable trades. They make or use cards to remove other cards, or to protect the life total. When they run out of cards, they're still on 30 life. Then the opponent just plays their cards and plays them out or while using their life total, and then you slowly fall behind, and then you can quickly lose the game from there. Now, what are the different ways? How can now that you know that your life is a resource, what are different ways that you can use your life as a resource? So using your life as a resource. I'm going to give you the main concepts of how you can use your life as a resource, aside from the Warlock hero power. Okay, firstly is life costing cards. This is simply the most straightforward application of the concept, right? The cards shown on the screen: Flame Imp, Cho'Gall, Ysera Awakens, many others like Baron and Hellfire and cards such like that. All of their effects usually are very, very cost effective for their mana, right? But then it costs you life to use that effect. When it comes to Cho'Gall, you can play a card for free, but it costs life. You can play Cho'Gall, and then you can play Doom on turn 7, costing 10 life, drawing whatever cards if you're behind on board. Or turn 1 Flame Imp, you pay 3 life, but then Flame Imp gets in for 6, 9, 12 damage. That's the whole point, and this is the easiest, or it's the most simple way that you can use your life as a resource. Now, moving on, weapons. So we're coming to weapons, and yeah, it's to no surprise that weapons, to be used effectively and for the most tempo, it costs life. Now people don't immediately realize, but when you're hitting a minion with your face, yes, obviously, it costs some life. Um, sometimes the weapons, sometimes weapons in some classes like Hunter or whatever are used to pressure the opponent's life total. In which case it doesn't actually cost you life. But we're talking about the more regular weapons such as Fiery War Axe, the dagger from the Rogue, or True Silver Champion, which is all used to trade minions to keep the board clear for whatever class they're in. Just so that they can progress their plan whilst hindering the opponent's plan. Now, yes, weapons cost life, right? And more so in the class Rogue because, in Warrior you have your armor up. In Paladin there's a lot of healing cards, but Rogue, which is the hero power, right? In the late game when it comes to when the Rogue is getting low, using their weapon a lot, trading a lot off to gain tempo. Like, when is it right to keep trading for minions with your life when it gets dangerously low to something like 10 or 5? And when is it right to just stop that and just use your weapon as an offensive tool to go face? Now, there's no correct answer to that. It just comes down to what class you're versing and what the board looks like and all those other factors. But keep in mind that you can always use your life with a weapon as a resource, right? Moving on again, we get to minions. Now this is a very, it's not a direct translation of how you can use your life, but this is more in terms of when I'm talking about trading minions as opposed to using spells, right? Let's say there's a Flame Breath Faceless on the other side, which is the 4 mana 7/7, and you can't deal with it this turn except for trading all your minions into it. But you can deal with it next turn with a spell in your hand that costs 1 more mana than you have right now. Your choices are: do you trade all your minions? Do you trade your 4 minions that probably took turns to develop for the other minion to save that 7 points of damage that minion does to your life? Or do you wait 1 turn, push some face damage, and then deal with it next turn? Sometimes the opponent's minion won't even hit your face. That's a risk you have to take. But yes, if you look at it this way, if you add card text saying pay 7 life, summon 4 XX minions and deal X damage to your opponent, suddenly the situation becomes much more appetizing, right? All you had to do was pay 7 life, and a lot of people just tunnel vision into keeping the board clear and trying not to fall behind on life and such, and they'll trade all their minions, which sometimes is the right decision, sometimes is the wrong decision. It all comes down to what kind of matchup you're facing and the position you're in that matchup. Obviously some matchups you really don't want to take that 7 damage, like when you're facing a dedicated aggro deck. But yes, this is how your minions can translate to how you can pay life. Okay, next up is increasing the value of your cards. So you can pay life in some instances to increase the effectiveness and the value of some of your cards. Now this is really effective in Arena and sometimes in Constructed. But how this works is if you're low on cards and the opponent has a threatening board somewhat, let's say there's 3 minions that you can clear off with a Flame Strike. Do you do it now, or do you do it next turn or the turn after, knowing that you're low on cards and you need to maximize your resources? Now that comes at the cost of taking maybe 6-10 damage to the face, but that can be the difference between you winning or losing the game, right? Pressing a board clear, or just using a board clear immediately, there's so much, people want to do it, right? People get the urge to just use their board clears when they can, because they're high costing cards, or they're whatever. But there's a lot of scenarios where, the opponent's holding a lot more cards than you, and you're down to like 3 cards, and Flame Strike is one of your cards. Like, you shouldn't use it right now. You should play other minions to delay their board so that they can play into your Flame Strike. Now, this sometimes gets punished by the fact that, really good opponents tend to play around these sorts of things. But at the same time, they're also not progressing their board out of fear of the card, right? A constructed example. This would be like the perfect example to use for like Freeze Mage. Now, Freeze Mage, they have like 4 or 5 dedicated freeze spells. Those being, Blizzards, Cone of Colds, and Frost Novas. Now, when to use those freezes is separates the elite Freeze Mage players from the really bad ones. If you use your freezes, if you just throw them out, you're gonna run out of freezes when it comes to the late game and when there's more damage on board, right? Stopping 5 damage, if there's 4 minions on the board, you really want to press that freeze effect, but they're only dealing 6 damage, as opposed to later in the game where you're stopping 2 giants, 2 8/8s, that's stopping 16 damage with your freeze, right? So yes, this is an example of how you can pay your life to increase the value of your cards. And lastly, there's buying more options, and this kind of weaves into, you're paying both life and tempo for this, right? So this is where this is also the Warlock Hero power. So it's trading off life and time to buy more options for later in the game, and these come in the form of these cards, Thought Steel, Burgle, Cabal Stone, and there's more cards like this. But is it worth it? Sometimes you're in the situation where you're playing down a deck, and you can effectively remove a minion on the board with what you have in your hand. But if the game plays out and he plays more minions, the opponent plays more minions, and your hand starts to dwindle because you're using all your spells immediately to remove those minions, that later in the game they're bigger threats you won't have an answer for. Sometimes it's better to take turns off developing your hand, and this will cost you tempo and life, right? So cards like Arcane Intellect, any draw cards, any ramp cards, even ramp cards can translate into this, because with 1 more mana crystal it buys you more options later in the game, right? So yes, this also weaves into how you can plan ahead, and that's by knowing your opponent's deck. So I suggest you, if you're playing constructed, then you read up on metagames or whatever, and if you're playing arena, you know which cards go highly in the class you're playing against. But yeah, that basically translates buying more options, trading your life and some tempo for more options as the game progresses. Now we're moving on to tempo versus value, right? When you're using your life as a resource. I'm not going to go too much into these points, but I'll give some examples. First, right? It is important to understand that tempo matters more. It's important to understand which point in the game that tempo matters more and which point value matters more. And how does life tie into all of this? Well, first example, right? You're facing down a zoo deck. Turn 4, you have a weapon that you can use to clear their biggest threat, and then next turn you can clear another threat. Or you can play a big minion that you have in your hand, you hope it survives, and then you get better trades off, but you're taking the risk that the minion doesn't survive. Now this is playing into trading life and tempo, life for tempo, right? You're getting your value 100% because your weapon is going to kill something, even if they kill it within a Swamp Ooze or Harrison Jones or something like that. You get immediate value. Whereas if you're playing a minion into a risky board and they remove the minion, or they just trade up their small minions with buffs or whatever, then you simply fall a lot further behind in tempo because your opponent progressed their board for whatever mana they use while dealing with your threat that you spent like your whole turn on, right? A second situation is more to when you should prioritize creating value with your life. You're facing down a control paladin deck, which is called right now Healadin, who has answers for all your biggest minions, and and they have some small creatures, or like they've hero powered like 4 times, and those guys are on the board. Drawing and developing your hand, while taking a little bit of damage, like 5 damage a turn, or you can choose to commit a huge minion to the board, but it's likely they have removal for that minion, and you just wasted your whole minion, and you're still looking at the same cards in your hand plus 1 new card. One way to win against control decks is making their turns more awkward and more inefficient. If they have to just press hero power and pass, that means you gain 8 mana crystals worth of, or you make them lose 8 mana crystals, right? While you're still drawing cards and you're still making whatever. And 5 points isn't that much of a threat. So creating value in those situations, the board may look daunting because of the sheer numbers, but paying that life, let them hit your face for 2-3 turns, and then you craft a hand that can deal with all their answers, and then you provide more answers, right? So when is the right time to begin leveraging your life as a resource? This part is quite, this part comes down to your knowledge on the metagame when it comes to constructed and likelihood of cards appearing in arena. Say in a control warrior, you're facing a control warrior in constructed, right? And their face damage, meaning, or their reach, meaning like how much they can deal damage to you out of nowhere, right, is somewhat around like the 15 mark if they have a weapon equipped and they have Grimash. So you can afford to spend your life down to that total if the board is clear, and if there's minions on the board, then you play accordingly to that. Against a face shaman, however, cards that cost you life in general, or taking turns off that also cost you life and tempo, is a lot more expensive when it comes to this, because they can deal so much damage so quickly, they can fill up the board so quickly, and they have really, really good reach late game, lava burst and that sort of stuff. So when it comes to that matchup, unless you're really behind, try not to use your life as a resource. But a lot of people are really defensive in that matchup as well. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't use your life at all in that matchup. Sometimes using your life at the right times can win you that matchup, right? So just keep your mind open. I'm just telling you that in against aggro decks, try not your initial thought would be not to use it, but keep the option open, right? Plan ahead, think about it a little bit more. Again, this translates into arena as well, right? That's that's down to knowing how much you know about each class and how much reach each class has. Right? If you're facing against a mage, and then you keep hero powering as warlock, right, and you're down to 10 life, and they have nothing on the board, they can just throw 2 fireballs at your face and you lose. Right? Even though you have 7 minions on the board and they're dead next turn, you just have to keep an eye out for when you have to stop. Right? Just against the classes that have reach, if you did that against a priest, then obviously you're just gonna win because the priest doesn't have that much reach, right? So that's how that ties in, and knowing the right times to use it can be the difference between winning a game with 1 life, which is still winning, right, or just losing because you committed too much to using your life as a resource. So just to close off this video, your life is a valuable resource, underlying resource, right? But you don't have 100% control over it, unlike other resources you have, cards in your hand or whatever. So using it in a right way can lead to a lot of unexpected wins against tough games and tough matchups or whatever. But the fear of not using your life at all can cause you to lose a lot more games than you would realize. You know. Now, developing the ability to read, when to use your life and how to use it, and all of that comes down to practice and gameplay. I can't, I can't give you any more, tips when it comes down to this. But I hope this video does open your eyes to the fact that your life total is quite a valuable resource. Like your life, a lot of people in Hearthstone don't use their life total as a resource at all. That's why you get arena runs and you go like 2 wins and 3 losses, and then you think about it and you're like, why can't I get more wins, right? Whereas the good players are eking out all their advantages and getting averages of 10 wins or whatever. And the same with constructed. They're winning unwinnable matchups because they're looking at different angles that a lot of other peoples wouldn't look at. So yeah, thank you. Thanks for watching the video. I know it was, there's a lot of information to take in, but I'm sure that if you look at your life total this way, you'll slowly improve in Hearthstone. Again, this is a really key subject. A lot of people do overlook it. And yeah, if you liked the video, please comment, like, subscribe, all that jazz. Check out my other videos on this page. I'll be doing a lot more Hearthschool or whatever it's called. I don't know. Stuff when it comes to the future. I can't really give you a video demonstration in this guide because that would take like 100,000 times tries of recording games for the specific situations. But yeah, I hope you learned something from this guide. I hope it was educational to you. I hope you took something out of it, basically. And I'll see you guys soon. Right, thanks. 6ENM signing out.